This Super Mike, we're just coming in. We're gonna do some war strategy. War strategy. What's up, everybody? A little bit of war strategy today. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And with our war strategy today, we're going to be going over this thing that happened in India in about 1857, 1858, called the Sepoy Rebellion. Well, some people call it mutiny. This happened in the subcontinent of India, and it was the British East India Company, basically. The Britain had this thing called the East Indian Company, and that's how they got their slavery kick on. And so yeah, so we're going to go over some of this, and the reason why I want to go over some of this, the Sepoy Mutiny, and I'm going to be reading from this particular article here called Strategy and Tactics, and I like it. It's a pretty good article. It's pretty good mag, and black people in America, we really need to have a basic understanding of some battle strategies. Some battle strategies. The Sepoy, they call it Sepoy Mutiny, Indian Rebellion, 1857, 1859. This is a well documented piece of history. Uh, Black America, we do need to understand this for several reasons, but one main key reason is that there's a little bit of similarity here because we're dealing with British tactics, okay, and America gets their tactics from Britain, and because this is English speaking nation and it comes from Britain, America was a British colony, and some of the old behaviors, strategies, tactics that Britain uses to maintain its dominance are used by America because that's part of their heritage. This is what they use. Um, Many of these strategies and tactics, Black America, we will recognize, will recognize them, but we don't know that these are warfare strategies. We just think this is how white people act. So we don't recognize some of this stuff as warfare tactics. But so the East Indian Company, the I guess they call it Honorable East Indian Company. Um, this has been formed in about 1600 by London merchants. Basically, these people was coming out to make money. This is 1600. Uh, they get into the slave trade heavy, and so they're forming these companies. They want to enslave people. You know, remember Columbus left Spain, and he's from Italy, but he left Spain because he wanted to. You know, it was a big thing. They wanted to get to India, and they couldn't go through the Muslims. The Muslims was killing them at that time, and they wanted to get over there to India because spices was big money. You know, sugar, all of these things that we take as creature comforts today. Those folks wanted to have it. It was big. There was big money in getting it, and a lot of that stuff was available in India. So the white supremacists, the white people, they wanted to get themselves over there to India. So Columbus found America while that was a bonus, but they still wanted to get over to India by land somehow. So this East Indian Company, and they had the West Indian Company too that was formed, but they call it the Honorable East Indian Company. Uh, London merchants to set up trade or theft between the Far East. It ended up becoming one of the dominant powers of the world until about the mid 19th century. For various reasons, the company fought a literal trade war. literally a war, not buying and selling, but actually a war with soldiers and everything. They fought a literal trade war with other European powers for control of the Indian subcontinent. The company recruited its own armies, mostly composed of Sepoy. These Sepoy, these people, they were Indians from India, and that word comes from um, their language. And this Sepoy, this actually the language is like Aryan. The Sepoy comes from the Persian word Sipahi, meaning soldier, and variants of the word have included Sipahi in the Ottoman army, Sipahi for various French Colombian colonial formations, and technically a Sepoy refers to a soldier, an infantryman, somebody that's in the infantry. But this is an Indian. This is an Indian guy. So basically, and I'm not going to read this whole thing because this is a nice little article, but like I said, it's pretty cool magazine to get, and I'll be going over some more of these strategies and tactics that we should get knowledge of, I should say. I believe that it's important. But so back then, uh, this company pretty much was an arm. So first off, right here, black folks, this is you're dealing with a nation state, which is England, right? Britain, okay? But then some merchants, just some people in that nation state, form a company, you know, called the East Indian Company. And it goes out as a power of white supremacy. See, so business, they're doing business. And in, under the guise of business, they're invading your country. Okay? They're taking control and dominance in foreign lands because of business. So, do we see that right there? That's a war strategy. Business. So, black folks, right there, when you're talking about whoever has the cheapest prices and the best service, that's who I'm going to go for. You've just lost the war because business is warfare. It literally is. Business is warfare. It's not just whoever provides the best service. That's not what's going on. You're being dominated. That's what's happening because that's how they use their business. And even today, we see how they use the dollar as a weapon. The United States dollar is used as a weapon. It has no value at all. It's not backed by any gold. It's not backed by anything. It's simply backed because if you do not use that dollar, they'll kill you. And we see that with Gaddafi. We see that with uh, Saddam Hussein. And, you know, but that's a big fatal mistake eventually for the white supremacists. But, you know, you have to develop a superior weaponry than them, and then they can't use their dollar, and that's the end of them. So, you know, we just need to see that. And so basically, back there, this East Indian Company, uh, the Sepoys, they had mutinied on May 10th, 1857, uh, with the support of the townspeople. The rebels killed every European they could find, then marched on the old Mughal capital city of Delhi. The Great Indian Mutiny had begun. So the British were mostly caught by surprise, even when some similar incidents over the cartridges elsewhere happened in months preceding Carmichael Smith's decision on that fateful parade ground reflected a dismal understanding of his own men. So basically, One of the main the there was a lot of discontent between, and this is another factor. You got what's called racial tensions, and you can get a book called White America by Ernest Severe Cox. I might try to find his picture later on here, but Ernest Severe Cox, this dude, he he outlined um, some issues dealing with racial tensions that white America's been trying to solve. And it's good to get that to just basically, if not, but to learn how they think. That's, I may not be able to find it, but anyway, I don't think I'm gonna find it. But yeah, so what happens basically is these people, most of this army that the East Indian Company had, most of this army was made up of Hindus, which were upper caste members in the Indian Brahmin caste system. These people have a very sacred, a religious veneration for cows. They don't want to kill cows. They don't want to eat cows because it will break their caste, and that's very important to them. The caste represents their worth, their value in their society. They do not want to be a lower caste person. It would destroy them, and it destroys their self-esteem. So, and also some of them were Muslims, and they have a very the Muslims have a religious uh, disgust of pig. So we definitely, you know, and what happened is the the British found a superior weapon because they were loading their weapons with these little muskets, and it took about 10. You know, you can only shoot maybe 3 to 4 times a minute with the old weaponry, and they found a repeating rifle musket with a quicker loading time, but this the light basically basically the light cavalry at the British garrison on Minot, Delhi, the support cavalry had to load their new rifle muskets. Over 80 sepoys refused to load the the rifle muskets because these muskets they used because the way they had to load those bullets, the barrel of the gun was just enough to get the bullet in there and some powder, and they had to oil that that barrel so that that stuff can go down easy. And what they would use is various animal fats to oil it, so it would be cow and pig fat. And this was highly offensive to the Muslims and the Hindus. Okay, now that coupled with other issues such as the Christians doing their proselytizing. These Christians were trying to convert people, and the Indians didn't like that. Uh, and then some other issues they had with each other and with the different, because they had different nations. They had the Sikhs, the Nepalese, the Madrasas, so Indians, and then they have various. They were kind of, and that's another thing. If you notice, white supremacy does a lot better taking over groups that are tribal. When you're tribal and you're not uh, together, you could be the same people, but you don't see yourself as the same. White supremacy has a really good time with easy time taking that. They're experts at playing different people against each other. They're experts at that. And so basically, what happened is they mutinied because the commanders. And another thing too. Here's another strategy, and I'll show you guys this picture because this right here is what they do definitely today. The the East Indian Company, they only their only commanders they had their high commanders were basically one commander, and they only occupied the British, pure British nationals were the high and the mid-level command positions. They would not allow Indians or any other non-British group person to occupy those command levels. And we see that over here with black folks, right? As we start trying to get a little what they call uppity, they go to threaten you, right? They go to threaten you. They don't want you to think that you could handle certain positions of authority within their businesses, within their companies. And like I said before, business is warfare. This is the reason why uh, Ida B. Wells, and I think that's Ida B. Wells. Yeah, Ida B. Wells. Um, we get killed, opening up businesses, grocery stores. We get killed having successful towns, you know, Black Wall Street, other towns. And basically, this is the reason why, because business is warfare, guys. Your black businesses is you know, this is what you need to develop. You need to develop. And when they see you develop, getting the skills to develop your business, people, they threaten you. This is white folks' jobs, right? You're not allowed. And so that's important to know. That's important for us to understand. So basically, with this company, they dominated uh, India. They made lots of money. They held it for 100 years. With this gun here, this little popped off. They got the mutiny set off. The the rebels, Indians, they had vastly more numbers, and threw the white supremacist East Indian Company off their heels. They were getting killed left and right. So the rebels killed every European they could find. They went around. So yeah, basically they popped them off, killed them. But what happened is the Britain. Let's see. Basically, what happened with that, the British, they began to regroup. They had special. They began to regroup. They found out who was loyal, who was not. Um, they began to. Uh, Let me see. I'm trying to get to this one part. Let's see here. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. All right. So it says, when the when the Sepoys reached Delhi, they found a welcome reception. Delhi had been the center of the once mighty Mughal empire, and it was a symbol to many of the glory of the past. So the Sepoys stationed there joined the rebellion, as did many people. So the Sepoys were working with light infantrymen, Sepoys, and then they had non-commissioned officers. Not They had just non-regular, just people off the street helping them. Okay, so and then once the Sepoys got stationed at Delhi, The British only had a small garrison at Delhi and could not hold the city. Some officers blew up the arsenal to deny ordnance to the rebels, and then the British soldiers and civilians took refuge outside the cities. So you see that? That's a war tactic. When you know you're getting taken over, don't sit there. You just blow the stuff up. Get out there, save your life because you have intelligence that you can relay to your friends. Don't look at it as cowardice. Sometimes you do need to get out of there. So Badur Shah Safar, the normal, the nominal Mughal emperor, was pulled out of retirement by the rebels, by the Sepoy, and they declared him king of Delhi by acclamation. He accepted, but reluctantly. Yeah. So basically, they just set them up a king. They thought this is all we need to do. So this rebellion spread throughout the northern India. Most of the Bengal presidency army mutinied, while the rebels seized other cities and moved into the countryside. They had Lakshmibai, the Rainy Queen. So this is the Rainy Queen of Jinsai, a minor kingdom in the north, joined the rebellion. The city of Jhansi, was a powerful hill fort and provided a good base of operations. Part of the rebellion was a general massacre of British civilians and Christians, including Indian converts. So they basically, if you, they tried to get rid of all sympathizers, right? And of course, they killed all the white people. So this would have implication as the campaign progressed. So another important battle spot was Lucknow. Lucknow. While General Henry Wheeler dug in at the at the cantonment at Kanpur, the situation looked bleak. Out of 130,000 or so Bengal sepoys, most had mutinied and were being joined by numerous irregulars, so just regular folks. Various Malvis, Muslim religious leaders, declared the jihad to remove the Christians. So, looks like the British are losing at this point. All right. So, well, basically, the British had so we can look at the advantages. The Sikhs, the Sikhs, oddly enough, not British, who were respected for their military prowess. Another reason was that the leaders, such as, let me see something. Hold on. Um, Let me get it together here. I'm trying to get this cleaned up. All right. So the Punjab irregular force was comprised of Sikhs, Gurkhas, and Pathans, various Muslim volunteers from the wild northwest frontier. They remained loyal to the British. So the Sikhs and all of these people that we see in some Muslim volunteers and Gurkhas, they remained loyal to the British. So the East Indian Company. They remained loyal to the British for a complex series of reasons. Some of it was hostility to Hindus, especially those among the sepoys who were seen as enemies from the Sikh wars. So basically, they remained loyal to the British because even though those sepoys looked like them, they didn't like them because of something they remembered that they did to them. So they would rather the white man run everything instead of handling the disagreements with their own kind. So this is something definitely that black folks have to deal with. We got a lot of emotion. We'd rather be ruled by white people. I remember I talked to a brother in Nigeria. Uh, he I was saying, well, who made that name up, Nigeria? Is that indigenous, or is that something that the white people created for y'all and imposed onto your nation? I said, why don't you pick one of the tribes, Hausa, the Oba? And he lost his mind. It's impossible for them, well, him at least, to even think about naming their land after an indigenous uh, tribe or some indigenous name that they create. You know, it was disrespectful in his mind. So this is an issue that the white supremacists have identified in their groups. They know that if they would rather be ruled by the white supremacists than to be ruled by each other. And that's something you got to get over with, because the white supremacists, they actually just want to kill you all because they're running out of time. But and I'm gonna try to get through this real quick. So the British had also had the advantage. Uh, they had some key allies. So the British had key allies. They had sophistication their um, in their command structure. British had the advantage in the rest of India. The Bombay and Madras's presidencies largely remaining loyal to the British. They didn't want to rule themselves. They remained loyal to the British. And so reinforcements also came en route to China and eventually from the rest of the empire within India. Princely states like Bikaner declared their loyalty, as did Maharaja of Gwalior. All right, so basically, so the British sieged the Sepoys at Delhi. They broke that siege, uh, took Delhi from them. Once they took Delhi, the Sepoys didn't evacuate Delhi before they all got killed because they thought it was so special, and so they ended up getting killed. A lot of them got killed there, um, and then they killed the basically the British. The British end up winning because they had a better structure, and they had and the key Indian groups did not turn on the British, and so that's the reason why they end up. Let me see something. I want to get this last part. So it says, now this is the part I'm going to kind of go through. So the British end up winning because they basically, let's go through this part. So November 1858, Lord Canning issued a general amnesty for any rebels not involved in murder. He came under criticism for being too lenient. This is after the British won. Uh, while the East Indian Company had triumphed, the Great Mutiny also marked the end of that company. Okay, the British government took over direct rule of India. Okay, so that shows you right there. Even though they're coming in as business like Shell, um, you know, Chevron, oil company, tech company, whatever. They come in as business, but they can be taken over by their government at any point in time. So that's how they come in and get their tentacles there, and then they lock themselves in. That's how China does. China sends their people. They don't hire your people in their companies. Okay, and that's warfare. They're taking over. They're colonizing you. Okay, so why were the British able to win against seemingly overwhelming odds at the start? All right, hold on a second here. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. So why were the British able to win? According to this, at the start of the mutiny, it appeared the rebels had the advantage. Most of the Bengal army had mutinied, and they were reinforced by numerous irregulars, jihadists, and local contingencies. The mutiny mainly affected the Bengal presidency, from Calcutta to Delhi. This meant that the Bombay and the Madras armies were under the control and could contribute forces. Further, the Punjab stood by the British, and its fortresses served as bases for the counter-offensive. So basically, the rebels only had Delhi, and they had one other spot, but the British had bases that could be the British had fortresses served as bases for a counteroffensive. So they absorbed the first attack. The regiments of Sikhs and others provided the reinforcements that retook Delhi and then campaigned to Gwalior and beyond. There was the Nepalese alliance that meant even more fierce Gurkhas could be used to fight the rebels. So these are all indigenous groups who don't like each other, allowing themselves to be used used by the British to defeat their brethren or their others, people who they don't see as their brethren, but these are basically people who've been in that region controlling for hundreds and thousands of years, basically. All right, so these Nepalese and all of these local people, they helped the British take control. Many of the minor Indian states, and sometimes settling scores with old enemies who had joined the rebels. There was also the Afghan factor. Das Muhammad alliance with the British had launched an offensive into the Punjab, or just supported increased raiding. So had so the Afghan factor. If this Afghani leader, Dost Muhammad, stayed true to his alliance with the British, had he launched an offensive into the Punjab, or just supported increased raiding along the frontier, the British would have had to deal with another front that could have overwhelmed them, okay, in the early stages of the campaign. So Afghan loyalty also countered any possible move by the Persians marching east of Russia heading south. And also, that's another key part I want to get into before we end this here. So the bigger picture, the British had were able to draw troops. They had numerous reinforcements, uh, and then they had better trained soldiers because of the practice. Let's see here. So the practice of not allowing Indian officers to rise. Okay, this is very important for Black America. The practice of not allowing Indian officers to rise to mid and high level command meant that after the mutiny broke out, there was a lack of experienced brigade and above leaders for rebel armies. This manifested on numerous battlefields where Sepoy regiments could not coordinate their actions nor effectively maneuver against the British. This did not mean that there were not good rebel commanders, a few, okay? There were a few, but the British had the superior staff work and the administration. They paid their soldiers, so that kept the loyalty going, okay? The better, so all of this stuff is really applicable in business. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do this. And that's pretty much it. And like I said, just to round this off, we need to study warfare strategies and tactics more, because we'll find the same thing. You have to get your people the experience to mess up, and that's the reason why uh, anybody that would teach us higher level strategy, you know, they get we get threatened. So-called communist meeting right now, it's a big deal about Russia. Oh, y'all Russians, y'all this and that and that. So that's the same tactic. Don't listen to the Russians. The KKK is watching you. Okay, and all this old silly stuff. They arrested Marcus Garvey. He created organization, which gave us practice in running things. It gives us practice in commanding and organizing things, campaigning, pushing. See, that's the benefit of what. And they did the same thing to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They arrested him. They went, but they couldn't stop the messenger because he knew more. He knew how to develop people. And so the thing is, you have to develop a community first. They don't want you to have that practice of learning how to create, learning how to develop. You know what develop. And execute and to attain goals in a collective manner. They don't want you to do that. That's all that warfare is, and that's all that business is. It's developing, creating teams, learning how to deal with the issues that come up, that naturally comes up between human interactions. Okay, having the emotional issues that come from failing but then getting back up. All of those things, and then people learning how to work with each other, learning how to, so creating organizations allows us to get that higher level experience, and then we can compete. But right now, we have a situation where many of us don't want to join organizations. We feel like we don't need leaders, which is the music to the white supremacist ears. Because if you don't have organizations, you don't learn how to operate on a higher level. You don't get that practice of failing in a safe space, and then getting put back out there. Right now with black folks, we fight to get position in white people's businesses to operate their stuff, and then as soon as we fail, we're replaced immediately and looked at as a failure. So, that's kind of my take on the Sepoy revolution or rebellion. And, every now and then we'll go over this. I think I'll keep getting stuff out of this, strategies and tactics. Um, Little thing there. So, all right, family, peace. And think that's it. So, and day. Make sure y'all say love to all your families and peace and love, blessings. Don't go to war for your enemy. Stay home and create businesses. Protect your children right here. Protect your children right here. Protect your families.